we're excited but disappointed because we were hoping that we would be at this time opening the doors and everybody being able to come in and participate. A lot of people have, I think, gotten zoomed out, and we're excited about just being back in person and being able to see one another. This one is I'm really excited because Ohio Arts Council had asked us to be part of a pilot program on creative aging. So we were honored to be asked. And then I had to go through a 6-hour training, which was really interesting, especially since I was such a senior and they're talking about seniors and how to train us and what to do with us. So it was fun and it was challenging. And then they selected our facilitator for today, Fariha, who is going to teach us creative writing. And this is not just going to be for today. This is, I believe, and I might be wrong, but I think it's like an 8-week time course. Am I correct? And so what we're going to do is kind of schedule a couple different times to meet, and we will notify you for the next meeting, which will be February 15th at noon on Zoom. Excuse me. Hopefully, from that point on, maybe we can schedule some in-person meetings. So before I turn it over, I just have one question. And if they miss their first meeting, will they be able to participate in the follow-ups? And welcome.
Thank you. Is that a question for you, Miss Linda? Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm Fariha. I didn't even notice some people come on because I was making sure I didn't have any glitches and looking over some stuff. I'm excited to be here. I am familiar with the King Arts Complex because I used to work across the street when I first moved to Columbus, working with young people under a grant program. And so that's how I became familiar through proximity and through the annual MLK programs. And I have heard of First Tuesday Tea more recently. I am with the Ohio Arts Council. And I'm happy to introduce myself, take questions. And then I guess whatever questions I can't answer, I'm happy to have Miss Linda answer them. I'm not always very comfortable using slides because then it makes it's harder to see in a group like gallery framework on Zoom. So I'm going to just go back and forth if that's okay with everybody, if you don't mind. Yes, I know for some people, like for me, I like to both read and listen. Can everybody see my screen loading? Okay. So yeah, so my name is Fariha. It's very, the pronunciation is really similar to how it is spelled. I'm again excited to be here. I was really happy when I got placed at King Arts and I knew what King Arts was, and to be, doing a program with folks that are consistently in community. So I think that's a privilege and a blessing. I just kind of copied this from the website, but I'm sure you all are familiar with First Tuesday Tea in a way that I'm not, by being former attendees. If you do have questions, I wanted to just open it up for Miss Linda to answer them. If anybody has a question, feel free to just jump in. You don't even have to do raise hand or anything. I'm fine if people just have me pause at any time. But if folks do have questions about First Tuesday Tea, I want to allow just that because this is our first session. And then our schedule, as Miss Linda mentioned, we are trying to just figure out the last day. So we may fluctuate the March and April sessions, but we'll have basically anywhere from 7 to 8 sessions according to what was requested by Ohio Arts Council. And the final one will kind of be more of a, I don't want to say maybe the right word is celebratory, but we'll just be meeting together, and it will be like open to a larger audience, just depending on dynamics, how we set it up in person and all of that. But we're happy to plan that alongside you all, depending on what you desire and who's comfortable sharing. What that will be like a closing out commencement type program. And we're hoping to have that at the end of April. So we may shift from a 90-minute to a 120-minute session for a couple of the dates. So I apologize for like the lack of clarity. We've kind of gone back and forth the last couple of days on how we want to navigate this with everybody's availability and whatnot. Any questions so far? Everybody good? Okay. And then this is just about me. This was on the flyer that Miss Linda sent that I just copy pasted it from there. I mentioned I moved to Columbus like 7-ish years ago. Actually, exactly 7 years ago. It was like at the end of January in 2015. I am from the South. I moved here from Little Rock, Arkansas, but I'm not a Arkansas native. So I'm from Houston, which is where my family's from. So I identify very proudly as Texan in all the healthy Texan ways. So I am a transplant. I got involved in the arts community a couple years in. I do have a background in creative writing and photography. And I've been able to do a lot more interesting and exploratory work like during the pandemic with like editorial work, applying to Ohio Arts Council's teaching artist roster, which is how I was then invited to participate in this program. And I was really privileged to be selected. So that's a little bit about me, but I will pause because I don't like to just be the only one talking. That's not my facilitation style. So let me pause and see if you have questions for myself or Linda before I keep kind of going through these slides. Everybody good? And Miss Linda, did you want to add anything to what I've said so far?
Nope, you're right on point. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm glad. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let me go back to these slides here in a second. So let's see. And then, yeah, this one I'm probably gonna have to read or have somebody read out loud. And is anybody interested to read just the next slide about the workshop and kind of what questions they might have or how you want to shift it? I'm happy to call on the 2 people I know. Karen, you want to read?
Sure, I'll do that for you. The workshop. This 7-session creative writing workshop will explore various styles of poetry related to themes of identity, erasure, and migration. The work of various American poets of color, both past and present, will be read, discussed, and reflected upon for elements and style. The workshop will both open and close with long and short writing to reflect a specific stylistic element and chosen theme. There will be opportunities to share out loud as well as write outside the workshop.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, I'm just looking at everybody's faces to see if anybody has a question. All right, so the format that I'm kind of looking at is like a check-in, a warm-up, like similar to what we're doing now. And that may be I'm hoping like 5 to 10 minute check-in, depending on who's in the room and how many people, and then like 5 minutes of just writing, almost like journaling. I would consider it almost like journaling on my end. And then we would kind of go into one poem. If we have a 120-minute session, we might go into 2 poems. And then we'll discuss the poem according to what is most, where speaks the most to people, but then also like stylistic pieces that you saw and whatnot, and kind of go from there. So again, like the focus is on like what the poem has in and of itself, but also the style, but then obviously the content's really important as well. So I don't want to underplay that. And then we'll just go into writing time, like silent writing time. For I'm hoping ideally, if we have a longer session, like 30 minutes, and then we'll just do sharing for whoever would like to share after we have our longer writing time, and then we'll just close out with that. So I wanted to see if that resonates with people, if you're comfortable with that, like breakdown of 3 different parts. They'll be different, like, you know, obviously the writing will be the longer part and the check-in and warm up journaling will be the shorter part. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or pushback? Okay. All right. So we can kind of go into introductions if everybody's comfortable, and I'm very comfortable with one person in the room or 20 doesn't impact me. And to Miss Linda's question that I didn't answer earlier, I have no problem if folks like join later, because I'm not, like, each workshop is ideally standalone, and if folks want to share and bring something back from the other workshop or bring a conversation, and that's welcome. But if somebody misses a session or didn't know about it or whatever, I didn't make it where they build on each other, like we're doing different poems each session, and the themes might repeat, but the approach will still be different based on what we're reading. So there is that piece. All right.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to start off with a quote. And then Miss Linda, maybe you can read this. Let me make the screen a little bit bigger. It is the, you know, I guess it is the beginning of the year still, at least in my mind, even though I realize it's 31 days in. And it is, you know, the beginning of Black History Month. And it is, I don't know, I guess the day is different. There's a lot of things going on in the world and society in our city. And so I just kind of wanted to start with, I just thought of bell hooks for many reasons. Maybe I'll put it that way. So Miss Linda, maybe if you're comfortable reading, you can read this quote and maybe just talk about how it speaks to you. And then we'll just transition to everybody introducing themselves.
Okay, when I write provocative social and cultural criticism that causes readers to stretch their minds, to think beyond set paradigms, I think of that as work, as love in action. While it may challenge, disturb, and at times even frighten or enrage readers, love is always the place where I begin and end. And bell hooks.
Did you want to just like speak to how that resonated with you or what you thought about the quote?
Well, it kind of sort of hits home in a lot of ways with all the things going on socially and criticism that we face every day. What for me, I think I love the word. I think that work as love in action. I love my work. And I think it shows through my actions. Even though it's been challenging the past 2 years, it's very, very disturbing and frightening because we don't know what's ahead of us. We know what we've been fighting and what's past. And we don't know if this is the new norm or we're seniors. If a lot of people feel like I feel like 2 years has been taken away from me. But it all comes back to me feeling that way because I love people. I love what I do, and I love what I try to do for the community.
Thank you. I really appreciated that. So yeah, and if anybody else wants to speak to this, please feel free. But the next piece is just everybody introducing themselves. I can always put this quote in the chat. So however folks would like to go about it. Oops, I guess I can't do stop share unless I put it on the screen. Let me copy paste the questions into the screen if everybody's comfortable, and that way we can see each, at least I can see more of you. Let me do that. But yeah, if you just want to mention your name, and then you could even speak to the quote or any of the pieces. The other questions related to our theme. All right, let me see. And I think I've already done enough talking, so I will probably skip this self-introduction. All right. So yeah, your name, and then if you want to speak to the quote, that's a possibility. I'll write that down as well. But otherwise, what is identity to you is one of the questions. What are your writing goals for 2022? And I do understand we're like a month in, but time is, I don't know, more cyclical than I guess at least for me, than I thought with the way things have been going. Kind of to piggyback off what Miss Linda said, and who or what inspires you to grow, and who are you working for? That one I think is a little bit vague, but I'll keep it that way just to see what folks think of it. So whoever would like to go first, you can take whatever 1-2 minutes, whatever works for you. And I do welcome, I'll pause and kind of mention my facilitation style after we go through this part. So Miss Linda, if you want to even go first, or I can call on whoever, and then that'll be a good opportunity for me to also make sure I'm pronouncing names correctly.
You want me to take this first, is what you're asking?
Yeah, if you're comfortable.
Okay, sure. Well, my name's Linda Broadness, and I'm executive assistant at the King Arts Complex. And I was trying to figure out, excuse me, but where do I select a question?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I had the slide up and then I put it down just so I could see everybody. But if it's easier, I can put it back up. But I do have it in the chat if you're able to see that.
I can do chat, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just dropped 5 different questions in the chat.
Okay. What inspires you to grow? Well, first of all, I think God inspires all of us each day in our growth. But then I also think about my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. They inspire me because they're always saying, Nana, you're going to do what? You're going to do that. And my goal is I always want to be able, or hope I'm able, to communicate and know what's going on. And I'm always up for new challenges.
Thank you. And whoever would like to go next.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Deborah Sparrow, and I was raised in Columbus, Ohio, and kind of traveled around. My husband was in the military. We moved away, then came back about 20 some years ago, about 21 years ago. I will say I'm inspired by God, and also my children, because like Linda, I want to keep up with things. I don't want to be a senior or a person that doesn't know how to use technology or keep up with things. So that's part of it. And what is identity to you? Well, for me, my identity is a lot of things, but of course, African-American or Black woman. And one of the things that I want to do is do some writing about myself and family history. And so I want it down on paper so that my children and grandchildren and generations further will know about their history and my history also. So those are some of my inspirations of what I'm trying to do. So I want to be consistent with my writing is what I want to do. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome.
I'll go. I'm Karen Scott. And speaking to Bell Hook's quote, writing is an area where you're free to write about what you think and what you feel. And I'm a retired person, but I'm a poet, and I've been part of the Columbus poetry scene since about 2010. And the nice thing about creative writing is that there are fewer hecklers and a whole lot less trolls than there are on social media. So you have the opportunity to write and express yourself without people trying to get a rise out of you. My goals, that I've got a couple of projects going besides my writing. I am being pressured to publish this year, so I've got to do more writing and get things organized. I'm also working on my family genealogy, because before my mother was stricken with Alzheimer's, she was kind of the family historian, and I guess that has fallen on my shoulders, and I'm doing it for my daughter. And by the way, Deborah, are you related to Stephanie Sparrow Hughes?
No, I'm not. Stephanie and I have talked about that. And but it's kind of funny. My husband is Sparrow, so they kind of believe that they may be related somewhere down the line, but not that they know of,
No.
Uh-huh.
If you're serious about your family history, you might want to check out the African American Interest Group of the Franklin County Genealogical and Historical Society.
I'm a member.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm a member.
All right,
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, that's my motivation is to try and get my life organized, get my writing organized and done, and the genealogy established. And I'm doing it, yeah, mainly for my daughter, who will be left behind when I'm gone. So I have all these things in order for her.
Thank you. And I also know Miss Karen. I think we call her Mama Karen in the poetry scene. I don't even know if that's accurate, Karen, sorry, but or Mama Bear maybe, but it's really nice to see you on here and see a familiar face. I'm glad you're participating. It doesn't surprise me because you are on very diligent with keeping up with the Zoom culture poetry scene. So I have a lot of respect for that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll go next. My name is Lucia Dunn. I'm actually an economist, so I'm way away from this. I've done a lot of writing of a very different sort. And I've been coming to the Tuesday Teas, I think, since the very beginning. And I always find something that expands my mind. And so I'm looking forward to this because I think it'll show me a different world of writing. I'm inspired, like everybody else, by the divine forces of the universe, God. And this is, I think a great opportunity. I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to be able to make it to your longer ones, but I'm sure I'll get something that, shows a different world to me from everything I hear here. So thanks for, doing this for us.
Yeah, thank you. And I have, I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because I'm fine if people need to leave early. Like you'll maybe just miss out on sharing or writing time, but I mentioned, to Miss Linda that we're comfortable. Like I will have some kind of continuation so folks can continue to journal, write, have prompts at home. And so I think we'll be gathering email addresses, or maybe I should have asked for that early on when we started, just so we can reach back out to you and then create community kind of outside of create community indirectly, I should say, outside of this space, whether we do this, on Zoom or in person. I think we'll go back and forth. So thank you. So yeah, if people need to leave early and that 120 minutes is too much of a hard hitter for you, for your stamina, I totally get it. So we're flexible, and we want to make sure that like the formats we choose, the times and all that, like accommodates the crowd, not just my schedule and Miss Linda's. And so that's why we also had some leniency with dates. So thank you and welcome.
Miss Ruby? Well, you're on mute. Okay.
Hi there. My name is Ruby Bell Jackson. I identify as a child of the universe, feminine, and the family griot. I plan for this year to create a gratitude journal for 2022. And my inspiration is my grandchildren. And I inspire to learn and grow with and for them.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby, and welcome. I think you're like the third or fourth person mentioned lineage and grandchildren. I'm not quite there. I do have a 10-year-old. I do have a 10-year-old who does talk about parenting with me, which I hope is more of a aspiration than a planning, at age 10. So yeah, thank you. All right, and then the couple other
We have Miss
ladies here.
Terry we haven't heard from.
I didn't know I had to talk on this. So I was trying to find the questions. You're asking what I identify as a child of God. I'm not really a writer, and hadn't planned to write. I like to read inspirational quotes. So if somebody's writing those, I'll read yours, but I'm not really, I hadn't planned to do any writing. And so if that's what this session is about, I'll read your writing. But I'm with Ruby too. I do things to kind of help my grandkids along. I think most of the people in the group are retired people, so we probably have grandkids. But that's all I have.
Well, we want to welcome you, and I'm not a writer either, so it's kind of like a challenge. So we'll see what we can do. And I don't think we've heard from Judy.
Hello, my name is Judy Marbury, and I identify as a believer and a Christian, and I'm not a writer either, but I do journal sometimes. So I do journal, but I'm not a writer. Both my daughters are writers, so they told me about this class today. I've been to the King Center when it was open several times for the lunch. And I kind of just like make grateful list or affirmation list that I say every day. Something positive just to kind of put in the atmosphere. So, but a writer, I'm not a writer, but I do read a lot of books and I do journal sometimes.
Judy, are you related to Donna Marbury?
Yes, that's my daughter.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah,
I was like, ooh, I wonder who her daughters are.
and she told me
Karen
one
was
of her
good.
friends.
Yeah, that's so nice. I'm glad
Yes.
that you were in.
Oh, yeah. She's a very good writer.
Yes,
She's a
yes.
very
Donna's
good
actually one of my
writer. Both of
mentors
my daughters are.
too.
Yeah, she's very good. So she's naturally did that since a child. Both of my daughters did when they were little. It was, you know how you buy school supplies. I buy the notebooks to write on for school. They would take them and they would be writing poems. So I'd be like, okay, I'm constantly buying paper, and I didn't understand it then, but then I just let them be, so they could, if they naturally wanted to do that they could. So yeah, but yeah, she told me that one of her friends, or a couple of her friends, would be on today. So
Yeah.
she's the one that speaks for me to be the writer. She's the writer in the family.
Yeah, very cool. I'm glad. Yeah, Donna is a phenomenal writer and has been one of Donna plus one of her really good friends, Erica, has been one of both of them have been very motivating and inspirational when I tried to get back into freelance journalism work and I wasn't sure. And, they were like, you should do it. Here's an idea. So I'm grateful. And it's really nice to see you on here. And I'm glad Miss Karen put it together faster. I was going to probably think the whole time we were together, in the back of my mind. So thank you. And I think everybody has gotten to go. Casey, I don't know if you want to go, just put you on the spot. I know some people may not know you. So if you wanted to introduce yourself and whatever art form you indulge in, whether that's writing or otherwise.
Well, technically I'm not supposed to be here. I'm 27 and not 72, but yeah, I actually do write lyrics for music, and I plan to release that eventually. So I would consider myself a writer. I took a poetry class back in college, and that's I would say different than lyric writing. Poetry, they definitely get more in depth of the meaning of every single word and just a lot of the synonyms and all that. But yep, I'm just here for the ride, and I definitely love to learn from everyone.
Thank you.
Newsflash, I'm not 72 either. I think this group is 62.
Yeah, thank you. And we appreciate you being here for the writing reasons and for the logistical reasons. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. I know I talked a lot. I do want to talk about my facilitation style before we kind of transition into some writing and discussion. But I do want to pause and allow folks to ask. When I did a session with a pilot research group in October, there were a lot of questions. I felt like I was being interviewed, which was, I don't mind it. And I am a good interviewer, so it doesn't intimidate me. But if folks want to ask questions, I don't, it doesn't really matter about what, personal stuff, writing stuff. I did want to pause and kind of allow for that. I'm not one to just read on about myself. It's really awkward. People might not care for all that information. So I want to give space for that, for anybody who does have a question about anything, whether that's for me or even Miss Linda.
Maria, did you state your writing goals?
No, I appreciate you putting me on the spot. When I wrote this question, I was like, oh, I wonder what my writing goals are. But I actually do. Let me see. I did write some down at the beginning of the year. So I also am trying to, I have some concrete goals and then some general goals that are ongoing. But for my writing, I wrote my artistic goals to prioritize my writing the same way I encourage students and folks I facilitate with to prioritize theirs. And really specifically to prioritize my manuscript. I've been working on a set of poems, gathering poems I've written a long time ago recently and trying to compile them into like a theme-based manuscript, like a collection of poems essentially. So I'm trying to push out time to write, but also push out submitting them just like in one-off in journals. So those are kind of two of my goals, like to start submitting writing and to journals more frequently, and then really to prioritize my manuscript itself. I don't really know if I've done a really good job, but that's not a confessional. Stand for January. And this for me, like the late January, feels like the beginning of the year because I've been struggling with my health just with like COVID and post-COVID symptoms. So even like yesterday, I was in bed most of the day, but this feels like part of the new year culture to me. So I'm grateful to be here. So those are my writing goals, to submit more. I don't have a concrete number because sometimes those become self-sabotaging, and then just to really prioritize my manuscript so I have it together, and then there can be more movement when I have other stuff out. Yeah, thank you for asking me that. I was like, Karen set her goals. Do I have proper goals? Other questions that people may have for me or about the workshop or anything really?
Could you repeat like the timing? Some days it'll be like an hour and a half, and then some days it'll be an hour. Will we know which sessions will be what?
Yes, yeah. I think the next one, I'll let Miss Linda chime in as well. The next one will be an hour and a half, the one in February. But because we're trying not to go into May, one of them is probably going to be 2 hours. So that's kind of why I modified that. But I don't think we'll be surprising you. So like unless there's some technology issue where we should have it at 90 minutes for most of the sessions. And then I think if it's in person, it'll be longer because there's other social elements. But let me have Ms. Linda kind of speak to that since she's more familiar.
That's correct. And we will give you plenty of notice. One thing we're trying to work on is we want to at least get everybody back here in person. We're working with a timetable with the Ohio Arts Council, but then also we want to get everybody back in person, and so we can work together and kind of expand the group. So the next one will be February 15th, and that will be a Zoom, and I'll send notices out in the next couple of days so everybody can put it on their calendar. That one we're going to work for an hour and a half on. And then we're hoping to do the next one March 1st in person. So just kind of be patient with us. And as the numbers go down, of course, we will follow all precautions as far as safe distancing, masking. It'll be a smaller reservations required to attend First Tuesday. So we're just trying to put all that in place. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. I hope that answers it. I realize I gave a vaguer answer, probably making it more complicated. But yeah, I think it's hard to have concrete plans. So yeah, thank you. If there's no other questions, I'll go into the poem that I want to discuss today. One of them was a little bit more morbid. I shouldn't say morbid, but not as uplifting. And so I was debating earlier, like which one I want to go with for this session versus the next one. And so this is an opening session. I wanted to see if folks are comfortable reading something that they're familiar with, or if they would prefer to read something they're completely unfamiliar with, which would be a little bit more. I don't think any of the poems I've chose are all build on heavy optimism. So they're more like this critique kind of culture, but I did want to give the option for both. And then Casey, if you want to, I just saw your chat, if you want to read what you wrote after we asked this question, I'd love that, just so people can kind of hear that out loud. But are folks comfortable explicitly reading something by like a famous poem by Maya Angelou, or would you prefer something new and different? It's not like I don't have enough poems to go around for different themes, so that's not an issue.
I'm open to either.
Okay, thank you. Other people have an interest?
I'm open to either.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yes,
me
I'm-
too. I'm
Yes,
open to
I'm
it
open to
all.
either.
I'm
Okay.
open.
that works for me. So Casey, did you want to just read your and then we'll just go into the poem?
Sure. I actually could probably share the video. So I'll try that real quick. Is the volume coming through?
Uh-uh.
Oh,
Yeah, it's still not coming through, Casey.
alrighty. Well, I'll read it to you. Just a moment here.
Nope.
And I can try to share the YouTube if you want to. I know it's only 40 seconds. So if you want me to try to share a screen, I can try that.
I don't know why, but she said an artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, Black and white, know this. That is why they are so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be shaped and molded at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist. Yeah, that just speaks to me. I love that interview with her.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I don't know if I've read the second half of that quote. I think the first half is at least for me, is really something that comes to mind a lot. So I appreciate you sharing that, especially because I know First Tuesday teas about multiple forms of art and culture. So thank you. And I definitely write a lot more unintentionally. I end up writing a lot more political type work, but some of that's just the inability to separate yourself from who you are, when you live in a certain person's body. So that really resonated with me. So thank you. All right. So because we had this longer, what this is about and how it'll work, I didn't necessarily have, I have one, but I didn't put it in the slides, a small journal activity. So after we read this, I'm happy to do a small journal activity, or we can challenge ourselves and dive in and do something more heavy hitting, but definitely don't have no intention to intimidate anybody. So we can kind of just take it from there. But my facilitation style is very horizontal. So I don't believe I have some superior level of knowledge or experience compared to anybody else in the room. It's how I operate with when I work with young people, young adults, and really with anybody. So I welcome pushback. If you want to change the flow, I'm not rigid. I think the only rigidity we have is the time, we can't just go on forever. But outside of that, I'm super flexible. So I definitely wanted to just mention that. Sometimes people don't like choice, but I'd rather ask than just throw something out there and it doesn't stick. So I just wanted to, I'll reiterate that each time, but please jump in, cut me off whenever you want, say you don't like something. I don't freeze up or anything generally. So I do welcome all of that, especially people's experiences, beliefs, approaches. I do invite. Everything has kind of been my style, and I try to be super intentional about it as time goes on. So I just wanted to make that clear. The poem that I had for today, does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I just threw that out there and then just jumped right in. And I also talk fast. When I get excited, I talk really fast. So I'm totally comfortable if somebody's that's not working for me, your speed is slow it down. It's not insulting to me. I'd rather people ask me to slow down than just be oh, we didn't really understand 25 to 50% of that. So just to put that out there. I try to be slow, but you'll notice as time goes on, I'll just start picking up the more comfortable I get with people. So yeah, so the piece I had was Maya Angelou's I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings. And I picked that because I think it relates to identity. And it could relate to a lot of things, obviously. So that's kind of why I asked. I know most people have heard of that poem, read it multiple times in their journey as people in the world, not necessarily as poets, but it's important to me to not just assume people are interested in something that's not familiar. So yeah, so the first poem is just I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I didn't even write the full title, but I'll have it on the screen, and then we can either listen to an audio or have somebody read it out loud. I'll put this link in as well in case you don't want to watch the screen scroll, because I know that can be kind of annoying. But let me do that really quick and put it in the chat so we have access. This is just the same link. So if you wanted to look at your own screen and minimize the Zoom, that's fine. But if somebody would like to read, and we can just read as slow or as fast as the person reading wants to, and then we can go back a second time and do like a silent reading or another read aloud. So whatever works for folks. So if somebody wants to volunteer to read, that would be great.
If nobody else is jumping at it, Fariha, I can do it.
Okay, yeah, if you want to do, I was gonna call Miss Deborah. She was the next one on the next block on my screen.
Deborah, do you want it?
Okay, I'll try to. Okay. You might have to.
Scroll.
Okay.
Yeah, I can scroll for you.
Okay, thank you. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wings in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tired, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for steel, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees. And might have taken my glasses off. And the fat worm waits on the dawning bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a cage bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on amid a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for steel, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom.
Thank you. And I'll scroll back up again. The link is in the chat just because I know sometimes scrolling can be nauseating. So I'll just give it a pause if folks wanted to read. Click on the chat and then read it on their own, and then we can kind of start discussing it and discuss different elements. But I'll keep it on the screen here for a couple minutes and then slowly scroll if folks just want to read it to themselves and let it sit with you. I'll just give it another like 30 seconds or so. And if I scroll too fast, I apologize. I was trying to go at a moderate speed. It's not too fast or too slow. And then we can start discussing it and see if we wanted to end with short or long writing time. So let's do just some immediate thoughts on the piece. Yeah, let's start with that.
I'm gonna have to leave in a minute, so let me just, address it shortly. Of course, this poem sends chills down me every time I see it. But, I think it shows what a great poet she was. The mark of a great poet is it has a universal theme for everybody. And she may have had a specific, target audience, but I think everybody has an element of that cage bird in them. And we're all struggling with that and struggling to break through whatever it is that's holding us down and keeping us from being the kind of person and the kind of that we want to be and the kind of world we want to see. So it's something about the universal nature of that really, really speaks to me. I love that poem. Thank you. And I'm sorry I have to go now, but this has been great. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Miss Lucia. We appreciate you coming in.
Okay.
Appreciate your insight. Thank you. Other ladies have any thoughts on the poem, even as it relates to identity? So the questions I had on the slide were just like the content, the themes, and some stylistic pieces you see like around metaphor or images. I'll put that in the chat as well.
I love her contrast and comparison, the back and forth between the cage bird's thoughts and the free bird's thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking at that too, Karen. I was like seeing if there was like which one had more, like which, the caged or the free bird, like which one held more line bandwidth, like in terms of stanzas. So I was like trying to see which one, and I wondered how that kind of like changes the way you read it. Yeah, because it's two stanzas of the free bird and the other four the cage bird. And then there's repetition.
Yeah, and then she repeats the one.
Yeah.
The one stanza.
Yeah, almost like a song.
Mm-hmm.
And did this like what were we? I guess the question I was thinking about, like if I read this poem, like what would stand out to me in terms of like the message, which Miss Lucia spoke to as well, but also like what is she really talking about? Is she talking about perspective? Because at one point I almost wonder if they're both really in cages and one just thinks they're in a cage, if it's a lot more deeper than that, or if, I understand it's not supposed to be so literal, but even literally, like, are they both in the cage? Because you could look at the world as a cage, or, a pet bird as, put in some captivity. So like, is it just the perspective is something I was thinking, or is it more about, like how much is a literal element that she's speaking to really there, I guess, in terms of like looking at the metaphor. So yeah, other folks, if you wanted to chime in and mention your thoughts, anybody and everybody's welcome in terms of anything really relating to the poem.
Well, it just kind of reminded me of the struggle to be free. And like you said, it's the cage bird struggling to be free, but could already be free. And it's the other element going on, and how being caged could be smothering and intent to stop your destiny. And I think the bird is also referring to people, because it could be people feeling that enslavement of being in a cage.
Thank you. And anybody else, no pressure. I just want to give room for people to process and share.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the caged bird sings. And the caged bird doesn't really sing, he has a fearful trill. And that to me speaks volumes, because a person that has been hurt or that carries a burden has a different cadence, a different speech, a different tone when they speak, versus a person that is happy and calm and feeling good about their circumstance. And so the caged bird sings of freedom, and his freedom song is a trill, not a bird song.
Yeah, and because when you read, like, I mean, the title of the book, at least, right, would allude you to believe like this. And maybe that is her piece, that you could find freedom even in a cage, because it's about, radical imagining, or your perspective shifting, or like how you, the piece about being mentally tied down. But that's a good point. And I was thinking about her books as well when you mentioned that, because technically the poem is, just about, well, I mean, the poem obviously is related to the book, but her whole autobiographical book is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And because I can't think back to it because I read it such a long time ago, I know it talks about like multiple themes, right, of just like living in a body of a woman of color, specifically a Black woman, and her childhood and everything, right? It's not just a short time period, but yeah. And I wonder if it's more about seeing herself, or I wonder if it's more like of a preaching kind of message, or herself, or like what is the intent, which you can't really know unless the author explicitly mentions it. But yeah, I wrote some of those pieces down too that you all mentioned. So I want to just transition it for the last chunk of time to ask if people would like to, in theory, we'd have done like a writing exercise for like 5 minutes just to get juices going. And the question that I had was like, what does emancipation mean to you? And I understand it's broad, and it's supposed to be broad because it's more of a journal. And then we would talk about the poem. Then we would talk about like stylistic pieces, which we kind of did a little bit right now. And then we go into like long writing, quote unquote, and then sharing. So we skipped the journaling, but I'm happy to go back to it if we just want to write for a little bit silently and start there, so it's not overwhelming. Or if we want to actually do more free writing and try to tie in a metaphor into our own like lives and write about it. That is very heavy lifting, I understand, but I also don't want to go too much in one direction. Just kind of gauge what everybody else wants to do, what the preference is in the room. If we want to do more journaling, or we want to do more of the pushing ourselves to try to like look at our identity as a metaphor and then see what we come up with. I'll just pause. Does anybody have a preference for journaling versus free writing? We can still spend the same amount of time. This will just be like a starter, and then we'll, I'll encourage you just to continue writing on your own outside of this, since we won't have a full half an hour. No specific thoughts. Okay, I also want to speak, I know I was mentioned like people don't identify as writers, and I think about that a lot because even as somebody who writes a lot, like for hobby, like as a hobby, as a form of healing and processing, as a paid starving profession, it's not necessarily something the identity of a writer and like identifying as a writer is something I struggle with as well, even though I write a lot, or or however you want to frame that. So I encourage folks to like move past this, not to dwell on that, because it's something I dwell on too. And you probably think, well, if you're teaching a writing workshop, you should identify as a writer. But I think I have this imposter syndrome that sits in the background. So I would just push yourself past like nobody gets to decide who a writer is or who writes, or like there's no authority kind of that goes into this. So just if that helps you kind of push past it and just encourage yourself to write however that comes out. I'm also very big on not teaching poetry as a structured form of writing, because I do believe in free writing, open writing. I don't really do like a lot of rhyming. Now, if you're interested in that, there's a lot out there, but I believe in like allowing poetry to be true expression. If that comes out as prose, like fiction style, paragraphs, tiny lines, rhyming, no rhyming, like that isn't the structure. I definitely want you to just remove that if that helps take the pressure off, because I don't ever have that pressure on myself, and I don't approach my like workshop style like that, because I think we do that a lot. And really we should just allow for writing as its true form, however that comes out, and that should be considered enough to be poetry. So we can, let me just share the screen out. What I'll do is put the slide on that I had for the actual prompt, and then we can see if it's too difficult for people. That's completely fine. I don't want to have anybody be intimidated or be like, that's too much. If it is too much, I have no problem changing it or letting you do whatever you want. This is, it's not about what I expect. It's about what you think is appropriate for you and comfortable. So this is the prompt I had. I understand it could be a lot for the time we have, but basically, like, if you were to think of your own identity, your identity today, your identity literally, right? Like your ethnic, racial, sexual background, all of that, then like think of just a metaphor that ties to it, right? And again, with Maya Angelou's poem, I think of emancipating yourself. I think of personal freedom and what that means. And she chose to write about that in the form of a bird, right? And like the containment of a bird. And then you can think about some imagery. So if you want to just jot down some ideas like, hey, this is some metaphors that I think could work. You could think of nature, think of something that doesn't live, right? Like even a table. Like there are so many things that you shouldn't just assume one way is the way to go. So if it was me, I would make a list. This is how I would approach it. Then I would just write down some images, right? Like she writes a lot of nature or like allusions and explicit nature references, but that's because it's a bird, right? And it's a living thing, so that works. And then I would just start writing about identity. And since you just wrote about metaphor and imagery, that may come up in your free writing. It may not come up. If you want to pressure yourself to put it in there, maybe just gently apply pressure. But I would just do like 2 lists, then free write about your identity. If you're able to tie in the metaphor, great. If you're able to tie in some images, great. If you're not, that nobody's like, this is only for your own writing practice, whatever that looks like. So does that work well with people, or you think this is still too much and we can just do like a journal write because this is the first session, and what kind of resonates with people?
I'm okay with the prompt.
Okay. I know you also write a lot. I assume you write a lot, especially based on your goals. And then Miss Ruby and Miss Deborah and Miss Judy, how did you all feel about just kind of how I explained how I would approach this if I was kind of writing from scratch, which I will be writing with you today?
I enjoy having a prompt.
Okay. And so does this prompt fit like your needs?
I definitely, I definitely need a prompt, so.
Okay, yeah.
um,
Yeah, the prompt I have is really vague, and some of that's intentional, but I understand the more vague it is, the more difficult it can be.
mhm.
But the prompt, like the larger prompt, is write about your identity as it fits into a larger society. And again, I understand that can go in 40 different directions, but I don't like to have prompts that are like tight, because I want people to have a lot of freedom to write and process it however they want. But I don't know if that's too large for you, Ms. Deborah, like that's too overwhelming, or it's like you need more direction.
I think I'm okay. I just have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. It's heavy. And then I don't know who else, Miss Ruby or Miss Judy, if you just mentioned something right before about the prompts, or if that was just Deborah's kind of asking about that.
I like the idea of you reminding us to make a list.
Okay. And Miss Judy, are you comfortable with this very large prompt? And Miss Linda, I know you're writing with us too, so I wanted to ask how you felt.
I think I'm okay.
Okay, everybody good. I don't want
Challenge.
yeah,
It's a
I want to
challenge.
assume the Zoom faces speak full emotions. It's harder for me to gauge the room. So I want to ask, and Casey, I know you're doing tech stuff, but I invite you to write with us if you're moved or feel like you're in the mood. So we can give, I'll ask Miss Linda how much time we want to give for writing. And then because it's not what I think is the appropriate time to, think about it for a few minutes, brainstorm, make a list, start writing, like those are all steps that I feel like it's hard just to, start writing immediately. For some of us, at least it is for me. And so I don't know how much time we have, but we don't necessarily have to share today. And I can have Miss Linda or myself email you like the information on this slide if you want to work through it by yourself. But I don't know how much time we have just to start, Miss Linda, but there's no expectation to share unless you want to share like what you wrote as an initial few lines or your list or whatever. But I'm happy to go to 1:30. I know Miss Linda mentioned she might want to stop a few minutes early just because it's the first day, but I'm comfortable doing the full 90 minutes. Does that work for you?
Or when?
Yeah, so we can just stop close to 1:30.
I'm going to have to leave off,
Okay,
but let me check and see if Casey's okay.
okay.
Uh,
Casey, are you comfortable with your schedule?
Sure, I can stay on for a while.
Casey, oh, okay.
Okay.
If you want to work till 1:30, that's great. And I think it's a great idea. And I'll be glad to share with you the emails, the people that were on, if you could share that writing prompt.
Okay, yeah. I can share the slides with you too.
And
So yeah, let's do like 13 minutes of writing, so like till 1:26, 1:27. And I understand like I don't ever expect in any workshop to like have an end result, but it's just the idea of starting sometimes is overwhelming. So hopefully 13 minutes will allow us to do something. And if you want to write on a notebook paper, or the screen or wherever you want, really, it doesn't matter to me. Wherever you can come back to it. And then we'll come back at 1:27, and then we can just wrap up the last couple of minutes, share what our process was like, any cool ideas we came up with, if we had 1 or 2 lines we got into that we want to share. And then we can just continue like sharing at the beginning of next session if people are wanting to share and are comfortable. Does that sound like it works for everybody? Okay, great. So let's do that. And if you want to keep your camera on, that works. If you don't want to, that works. I will put a timer on here and then give a warning. And I will leave this screen kind of here for folks to see. So I'll just give a 1-minute warning in the chat and then out loud. And then we'll come together and then we'll wrap up by 1:30. All right. So happy writing, and then we'll come back together here in a little bit. All right, welcome. And I'm just gonna pause my screen share, but we will be sending it out, and I will copy it into the chat just in case you want it. So I just want to ask how that process was for people, what you want to share, ideas you had, questions, anything for the next.
Even as I was copying the prompt down, you know, I was already formulating a poem. So, and I'm not all that shy about sharing. You want me to just go ahead and read it? Okay. It's got a working title of Invisible right now, but I'm sure that will change. When you age, it feels like the world wants you to disappear. As you move through physical spaces, the younger, more able-bodied impatiently follow in your tracks or zip around you at first opportunity. When waiting in line, the rude and impatient even dart ahead of you to be served. But like Maya's caged bird, lift your voice. Even though age and infirmity limit your body, speak up for yourself, for your space in this world. Don't let the world disregard you, minimalize your presence. After all, we don't all have Patrick Swayze around to tell everyone nobody puts baby in the corner. Come on, speak up for yourself. Sing.
Thank you. I'm actually very impressed that you just pumped that out. I'm also not surprised. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Thank you, Karen. And then what, did you even come up with multiple metaphors, or were you just like already in it and just started writing?
I was already in it when I started writing. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that other ladies in the room want to share. I'm just making sure I also get everybody's name down too, just to make sure. I want to just, I mean, also interested how the process was, ideas you thought about. If you didn't like it, you thought it was horrible and wrote about something else. No, I'm not insulted or anything. So I just wanted to ask about that.
I wrote about something else. I don't know.
What did you end up writing about?
Maybe it's the same, but I don't know. This is my poem or prose. This vessel will be filled with the sweet oil of wisdom, filling the room with the aroma of peace and tranquility. This vessel will appear in the shape and form visualized by those that gaze at its beauty. This vessel is full of love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, gentleness, faith, self-control, and forbearance. This vessel.
That was great. They seemed very much on prompt to me, at least. Yeah, like with the metaphor and like the descriptions and stuff. I had a hard time writing images because I picked like really odd things that I don't, oh, why would I pick flower? I'll pick a carrot. And then it was hard for me to like do visuals with the carrot. So does anybody else want to kind of just share about their process or an idea they had before we wrap up? Okay, and again, no pressure. I just I'm trying to get more comfortable with like allowing space and silence, even when it sometimes feels a little bit awkward on my end through Zoom. I did want to ask, like, in terms of like extension activities, what interests people have, and then that way I can put it in an email that Miss Linda will send out, or I will send out. And like, would you like me to send more prompts, just the same prompt, more poems? Like, what's the interest in the room, and then I can kind of do some stuff on my end based on what you might want to do between now and next time if you're able to come back, which I hope you are.
I always like prompts. The more the merrier.
Okay. Yeah, I have like an entire, I have like a list of like 100 prompts that I've put together for writing circles. So I can send that to you personally and not scare everybody else away, Karen. So there's some more like really outlandish, but sometimes it's good to push ourselves, which I think you might appreciate. So yeah, I'm happy to send out more prompts or really like individual things as per needed. But next time I thought we could also discuss identity, since we didn't have a full 30 minutes. And I usually try to like chug out stuff fast because I try to be in the practice of writing, so the stuff comes quicker to me than it does when I'm not in the practice. But I still had a hard time. I was really pushing for this carrot, and I had a hard time about like getting what I wanted out. So I encourage you to like continue to write really about whatever you want, including this outside. And then we can always start next session with sharing what we wrote. If we want to share like our initial free writes poems based on today, so we can definitely start with that. And I encourage if you have friends and they want to come on, I think Miss Linda said it's pretty open. I did ask about the age, but I didn't get a specific answer, but I think First Tuesday tea, or I guess in this case, ongoing Tuesday teas for the next few weeks is catered to folks 55 plus at least, but I can always ask if you want to invite somebody who's not in that bracket. And if you have questions, I should have put my email, but I can put it in the chat. The last thing I did want to ask before we leave, and I appreciate you allowing me to go 4 minutes over, is just your emails. I assume that all of you have some relationship with Miss Linda, but I didn't ask, so I don't want to just go with the assumption. So you want to drop your email in the chat. And if you're not able to use the chat, you can just spell it out and I can write it down. And then any questions you have, I'll take those. Otherwise, I'm happy to send Karen prompts, and then I'm happy to send everybody else like just today's prompt and poem and the journal exercise that we didn't do, in case you want to do that just for yourself. So yeah, if you just want to drop your email in the chat, that's the last thing we need. Oh yeah, I noticed that because I was starting to use like neutral pronouns, but yeah, that's true. It's not also limited to women. So if you have friends or people in your religious community or family network, please invite them. And Karen, I did get your email. Thank you. And then Miss Deborah, I got yours. And Miss Judy and Miss Ruby, if you wanted to, okay, or just Miss Judy, if you want to let me know yours. And then does anybody have any questions for me or Casey or even for Miss Linda? I know she's not here at the moment, but yeah. But if you don't, so I'll follow up sending you some stuff, or one of us will. But I did appreciate your time and your energy and your willingness to write in this space with me. So I am very grateful to be here, and I hope I didn't scare you, or I don't think I scare people. I just think I sometimes make things awkward, but if I made things awkward, I hope you still come back. If I didn't make things awkward, I hope you still come back. And I think we'll be seeing you in 2 weeks, and then we'll have the May and April dates solidified in terms of time. And if you want those earlier, I think we are intend to send them out on the email as well, like, because we were talking about it this morning, we just need another day to get one question answered. So yeah, but otherwise, thank you. I hope you have a nice sunny rest of your day. And I encourage you to continue to write about interesting things. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Fariha.
Thank you, Karen. And nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.